Our last video showed us that innovation ecosystems can really enhance the innovative potential of organizations. We now want to dig a bit deeper and explore this concept of open innovation, the idea of working together in partnerships with others to boost the innovative potential of our organization. You can, in broad terms, think about this video now as a primer on open innovation. Here's what we're trying to do in this video. We'll first of all review the case the case for moving from closed to open innovation. This, how is open innovation different from closed innovation? Why should we worry about moving from closed to open innovation? We will then unpack this umbrella concept of open innovation to see what the different activities really are that make up this concept of open innovation. And I'll end with a question to you, namely I'll ask you to reflect upon the possible downsides, the possible dark side of collaborating with others in the innovation process. So let us begin by comparing and contrasting closed and open innovation. Henry Chesbrough, the founding father of the concept of open innovation, says that open innovation actually causes us to rethink many of the deep-held assumptions of what innovation management really is. And he contrasts open innovation with closed innovation. And I will now introduce you to the idea of open innovation by comparing and contrasting it with the closed innovation principles as summarized by Henry Chesbrough in his best-selling book. So, open innovation principles differ in a number of fundamental ways with what he calls the closed innovation principles. So it's really about a shift in innovation paradigms. It's about moving from a conception of the innovation process as being very closed, being conducted entirely internally, to a conception of innovation as a collaborative, open activity. So let's look at the key ways, the key differences between the two approaches now in a systematic manner. So, according to the closed innovation model, really the core assumption was that the smart people in our field work for us. If we're Apple, we're able to attract the smartest people. If we're Tesla, we're able to attract the smartest people. And hence we focus to work with the smartest people that already are in our company. But according to the open innovation model, we would somehow challenge this assumption, and we would say even if we're Tesla, even if we're Apple, many of the smartest people will work elsewhere. They won't work for us, and we need to find ways in which we can work with the smartest people inside our organization and at the same time outside of our organization. And we need to be good at working with both. So that's the first key difference of the open innovation model relative to the closed innovation model. And then according to the closed innovation model, the fundamental assumption was that if we are to benefit from research and development, then we need to be the ones who actually do the research and development. But now, the open innovation model also questions this very assumption and says, well, I don't think so. There are actually good examples of companies that profit from research that they haven't conducted themselves. Research and development activities that were conducted in universities, research and development activities that were conducted by suppliers, by competitors, you name it. So we can profit from research and development efforts that we haven't conducted ourselves. Another second important departure of the open innovation model from the closed innovation model. And then the closed innovation model really assumed that if we want to win, if we want to outcompete others, then we need to be the first to market. Well, according to the open innovation model, there are more important things than being the first to market. The open innovation model suggests that you can outcompete others even if you're not first to market. And you can do so in particular by having a superior business model. So a superior business model will be more important in many cases than being the first to market. Also, this is quite important because this also shows you that open innovation can work quite well for followers, right? Those who wait for a certain technology to achieve a proof of concept somewhere and then jump on the train if you want and harness or capture the potential of that technology later on. According to the closed innovation model, the key idea was also to create the most and best ideas. In the open innovation model now, the emphasis shifts from generating ideas internally to generating ideas internally and externally, and more importantly, to making the best use of these ideas, irrespective of whether they come from inside the organization or from outside the organization. So we need to make the best use of internal and external ideas. At last, there are important differences as they pertain to intellectual property. So in the closed innovation model, the idea was really that we need to control our intellectual property. We need to control our IP, because the intellectual property allows us to actually exclude others from using the technology. The intellectual property is our recipe, our guarantee to be successful in the market. Well, the open innovation model also questions this very assumption by saying that we can profit from others using our intellectual property. So at times it might be good to share our intellectual property, either for free or in return for certain royalties, and we can also profit from the IP of others. So we need to make the best use of our own intellectual property and of the intellectual property of others. So this gives you a broad idea, at least, of how open innovation is different from closed innovation. So it's this attempt now to drive a transition from innovating in isolation to innovating in partnership. And this can be best depicted graphically. So what you see here is a very simple breakdown of the innovation process into the 3 stages of ideation, research and development, and commercialization. And you see here in the middle the classical innovation funnel with a broad front end and a slimmer back end target, and with the objective of generating new products and services for our target market. So the key distinguishing feature now for the open innovation model is that the boundaries of the organization, which demark this innovation funnel, have holes. They're permeable. They're permeable such that knowledge can flow from the outside into the organization and from the inside to the outside of the organization. And let me illustrate this graphically, because it allows for a new set of knowledge flows to accelerate the innovative power of our organization. So, obviously we can still draw on our internal technology base and convert that into products for our current market. Sure, right? That's the classical way according to the closed innovation model. But what we can also do is we can start by drawing on the internal technology base, then see that we would actually benefit a lot from spinning that out, asking others to contribute to it, and then reintegrating a particular development into our organization. So during the innovation process, we would explicitly work together with outside actors to then reintegrate it and develop a product for our current market. What we could also do, we could draw on the external technology base. That is, we could draw on technologies from our suppliers, from universities, from other outside actors, and harness the power of these external technologies to develop products for our current market. And this is what is known as inbound open innovation. We draw on ideas from the outside and develop products for our markets. What we could also do is we could in-license external technologies. So technologies that are already encoded in patents, and we could decide to in-license these patents and then use the patents to develop products that are either good to serve our current market or that allow us to enter new markets. And finally, we could draw on our internal technology base and then in the process of innovating recognize that actually we can't do much with the product or service that we're generating, but there might be other firms who can benefit from our insights so far. So we could decide to apply for a patent and then to license out the patent or to spin out a company to take advantage of a respective development project that we can't really exploit internally. So in a nutshell, the open innovation model allows for new flows of knowledge from the outside inside the organization and from the inside to the outside. And with that in mind, I want to unpack the notion of open innovation. I want to show you which specific innovation activities are subsumed under this idea of open innovation. And we can broadly think of it as being composed of 2 dimensions. So first we can distinguish between inbound and outbound open innovation. That has to do with the direction of the knowledge flow. So inbound open innovation is all about drawing on external knowledge and absorbing it, so from the outside into the organization. Outbound open innovation is the exact opposite. Knowledge moves from within the organization to the outside. So that's our first dimension. The second dimension is whether these knowledge flows are monetary or non-monetary. That is, does somebody have to pay for it, or does it occur for free, largely? So with these 2 dimensions in mind, we can distinguish 4 different sets of activities that is subsumed under open innovation. So the first and most frequently discussed aspect is what is known as sourcing. So here we draw on external expertise and we're not paying for it. We're working together with our suppliers, with customers, we have surveys, we've got workshops, we do market pre-tests, and all of this to integrate external ideas, and we do this in a non-monetary fashion. That's sourcing. Obviously, we can also pay for external knowledge to flow into our organization. We can do this, for instance, by in-licensing external intellectual property. That is, we can detect valuable patents that help us in developing the products that we need. And we will simply pay royalties in return for being able to use these external technologies. We can also purchase external companies, hire people from other organizations to acquire this valuable external knowledge. And we might also decide to create our own venture capital fund to invest in technology startups and to capture value thereof. So this is sourcing and acquiring as the 2 modes of inbound open innovation. If you look at outbound open innovation, then the counterpart of sourcing is revealing. That is, in the very same way that our supplier might decide to share knowledge freely with us, we could decide to freely share knowledge with other actors. We could decide to freely share knowledge with our suppliers, with our customers, with universities, you name it. And we wouldn't ask money in return. You might ask, why could that be useful at all? Because it seems stupid initially, right? And I will, in a minute, talk about Tesla, and that will hopefully help you understand why revealing might be a smart move for an organization. And finally, there's divesting. So I might decide to let knowledge flow from my organization to the outside by creating a spin-out company, by out-licensing our IP, that is by allowing others to use our patents in return for a certain royalty. And we might also decide to sell, for instance, part of our business entirely. And now let's illustrate this by means of Tesla. So Tesla is at least active in 3 of these modes. So as for sourcing, Tesla will obviously work together with actors such as customers, their suppliers, to capture their ideas on how to improve their models and how to develop new models. They have also just begun to acquire external intellectual property by purchasing a manufacturing company in the United States, which should help Tesla develop the capabilities needed for mass production of electric vehicles. And now, most discussed in the media was Tesla's decision to freely reveal its entire patent portfolio. So what Tesla decided to do, and if you Google this, you'll find thousands of articles on this, Tesla decided to make its entire patent portfolio available for the free use by everybody. So even Daimler, BMW, electric car manufacturers and so on can now use for free Tesla technologies. So the entire patent portfolio is being opened up. And the question now is, why should you do this? Many analysts at Wall Street were really irritated and frustrated by this move because after all, the patent portfolio of Tesla is a highly valuable asset. So why would you want to devalue this asset by making it freely available to others? Well, the logic for Elon Musk to do that was multiple. Well, first of all, he said, look, I want to have the best engineering talent work for Tesla. And to do this, I need to give them the feeling that they're not just developing technology that is proprietary to Tesla, but that can shape the entire electric vehicle industry and that can hugely accelerate the transition towards electric mobility more globally. As an additional argument, Tesla said that by revealing these technologies, it will accelerate more generally the transition to electric mobility. Because, and I think that's an interesting argument that Elon Musk made, the core competitor for Tesla might not be the other electric vehicles, but all the other non-electric conventionally powered cars. And what Elon Musk wants to do and what Tesla wants to do is not to fight against the other electric vehicle manufacturers in a defined, let's say, revenue pot, but rather he wants to hugely increase the whole pie, if you want, of electric mobility. So he says we need to work together as those interested in electric mobility to make electric cars the standard. And in doing so, we will all benefit. And by sharing the patent portfolio, making it freely available, he hopes that this transition towards electric mobility will be accelerated and everybody, and including Tesla, will benefit as a result. We should now have an initial idea of what open innovation is. And I want to leave you with an intriguing question, namely the question of whether you can think of possible disadvantages of open innovation. So is Tesla also becoming more vulnerable by cooperating with others in the innovation process? Think about it and maybe write down a few of the downside risks that jointly make up the dark side of open innovation. So I think in this video, which was a primer on open innovation, you learned hopefully what open innovation is, that it's this idea of partnering with others, this idea of letting knowledge flow from within the firm to the outside and from the outside to within the firm in view of boosting the innovative performance of our organization. So it's really an effort to harness the power of collaboration in the interests of greater innovative performance. So many thanks, and please join me now for our concluding video on our session on orchestrating strategic alliances.